Start spreading the news.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
New York, I love you. I love New York.
Rose trying to get open, fires away. Bang! It's over! The Bulls win at the buzzer! Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection. Puts up a three. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang!
What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of Off the Ball Podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. And on today's show, I got a special guest with me, my man, Up in Flames host, Believe in Mavs host, Mo Up in Flames Murphy. What's going on, bro?
Man, what's going on, bro? Just nice to, sit back on a Sunday evening and talk hoops.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A lot going on in the association. We got teams that we thought were going to be good, kind of be ass. We got, a lot of players, a lot of injuries going on in the league. A lot going on in the association. We got an undefeated team in the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we got a lot to talk about. But let's start off with the Cavs. And they're 11-0. New coach and Kenny Atkinson. I expected this team to be better, but Mo, I didn't expect them to be 11-0 good right now. Like they're playing really good basketball. Garland feels like he's leveling up as a point guard. Feels like Kenny he's unlocked. Mobley's game. So what do you feel like's been the key to this tremendous start? I mean, the best start in franchise history for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I think the biggest key for me is like chemistry. Like if we start talking about a lot of these other teams, they made a lot of moves in the offseason that they're trying to adjust. You look at the Dallas Mavericks, a team that went to the NBA Finals and then added Klay Thompson and swapped out Derrick Jones Jr. for Najee Marshall. And so they made some moves and had some adjustments that they had to make. But then Cleveland basically comes back with the same core of their team and Jared Allen, Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. So with a new coach and a solid offseason of implementing your system and how to best, use the players, I think with them already having the chemistry and not really having to implement somebody new that's going to impact the offense in a way that, a Garland has to adjust or Donovan Mitchell has to adjust. All you're doing is probably adjusting to the way you guys are being used, but you already have that chemistry having been a really good team and played together last year. So I think chemistry is the biggest thing why Cleveland's off to this hot start because of all the good teams. You look at Cleveland, and then you even look at obviously the defending champs in Boston. Those were teams that if they got to a hot start, you wouldn't be surprised because of what they're returning. Everybody that was important in a vital part to that team is coming back, so chemistry will never be an issue, and that's something that I think is huge at the start of the NBA season. On top of the fact that everybody's healthy. Right at this point, they don't have their star players aren't necessarily guys that don't play back-to-backs. Everybody is healthy. So that's another thing, too, is it just depends on what type of team you are. Even with chemistry, what type of star player do you have? Because are you playing in all 11 games up to this point? Are you sitting back-to-back? So that matters, too. So I think everything's just clicking, and I think Cleveland caught lightning in a bottle. Now, I wouldn't go as far as saying, they're a championship favorite or anything right now, 11 games into the season.
Yeah, it just like you said, they're relatively healthy, and no Max Strus. I don't think he's played yet this year, which is kind of crazy because I think they're number one in 3-point shooting, and their pace of play has been their offense was very stagnant last year under JB Bickerstaff. It was very stagnant, and we know they have the guys to have a kind of a solid offense, right? Mm-hmm. That should be kind of at least a upper above average to, near, top of the league and type of offense. And we didn't see that. It was kind of just Donovan Mitchell just trying to do his own thing. And I think, you know, didn't he lead? He was top 3 in scoring, right? Or he near the top at scoring last year. And this year is just, Kenny just like, no, we're not going to just be relying on Donovan Mitchell. And we're going to get everybody involved. And their offense, I mean, they're number 1 in points per game, offensive efficiency, 3-point shooting, like field goal. I think field goal percentage, they're up there. Like they are just playing tremendous. And like they're getting tremendous, you know, play from Garland. I mean, I think that's key. We know he was an all-star a few years ago, wasn't healthy last year. Him and Mitchell, I mean, at times last year, it looked like this isn't going to work, you know, and that's why I think we thought maybe that's why Donovan Mitchell would try to find his way out, because I just didn't know if that was going to work. And he wound up signing an extension and staying. And, you know, they let go of JB, the Bickerstaff, and they got Kenny Atkinson to get there. And he's changed that all. And I don't expect them to keep this pace up. Obviously, they're not going undefeated or
right.
I don't know if there's, you know, going to even be a 60-win type of team with this, you know, torrid pace, but they have definitely just played tremendous bat defensively. They're keeping up that intensity. We know they're a good defensive team, but they're still maintaining that while being a high octane offense. And that's not easy to do. See, though, usually when you're a high octane offense, the defense is usually what gets affected. But they've maintained that level because obviously they got Jared Allen, and Mobley is, I mean, he was a top 3 defensive player of the year type of guy. I mean, he's on that pace again. Like he had a big block a few nights ago, or was it yesterday? Did they play Boston, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had a big block that helped them to win the game. So they're looking good, man. They're looking good, and they're on top of the Eastern Conference right now. But let's talk about let's talk about 2 teams that are not doing not so hot right now. And let's start with the Milwaukee Bucks. They, you know, we're recording this on a Sunday, and they had just lost to Boston after blowing a lead. They had that in the bag. You know, -2.5 too. Did not go down for me too. So that's kind of sad. But I'm watching the game, and you just see Giannis's body language, and he's pissed. He's not happy with, and you saw when they played the Knicks the other night, he kind of went on a little rant, you know, in the post game. They're not looking good right now. Like they are struggling mightily. Like they're 2-8, 2-9. You know, I don't know what their win-loss record after this loss today, but they're struggling a lot offensively. It's just not looking good. They feel old. It's just a lot going on. What is wrong with the Milwaukee Bucks? Like, why is it look so bad this 10 games into the season?
Giannis asked for this. Like, if we line up to the situation that they're in, Giannis asked for this the past 2 years. You know, they fired Coach Budenholzer because, you know, what was that? A first round exit after winning, you know, an NBA championship? Like, they fire him the season after winning an NBA championship. He wins the championship. He coaches the season. Boom, he's gone. Then you hire, what was his name? Adrian Griffin, right?
Yeah.
Adrian Griffin. They're what? Second place in the Eastern Conference at the time. Second or third. Like, it's like Milwaukee was not playing bad basketball. They were good defensively. You wanted to see a little more from them offensively. But, like, at the end of the day, they got Giannis, and they, you know, they had some. So you thought they would be fine. They fire that coach. They bring in Doc Rivers. Like, Giannis asked for this. Apparently, like, the firing of Adrian Griffin was because, like, it was a basic, you know, Giannis kind of pulled the trigger on that or had, you know, high thoughts on the fact that Adrian Griffin just wasn't the guy. And then they bring in Doc Rivers, and, like, he showed you he wasn't the guy last year, but, like, at the same time, Milwaukee has some injuries. So, like, you give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what they look like coming in. And, like, I can't blame, like, Dame Lillard, because Dame hasn't looked bad. Like, Dame has played really well.
Oh, no, yeah.
Like,
people are saying, the Dame thing, you know, it's not working. I was like, it's not the Dame and Giannis thing. It's more of the pieces around them and just the offensive, like, as a whole. Like, Dame and Giannis are being Dame and Giannis.
They're playing their part as superstars. Like, Dame Lillard's numbers look good. Like, I mean, you know, the one game, what he have, like 40 in the loss? when Giannis didn't play that one game, but still, like, Dame is not producing offensively. He hasn't taken a dip. He hasn't taken a fall off. He doesn't look washed. Like, if you want to say his stats are empty, I mean, that's fine because they're losing, but it's like Dame and Giannis are trying to carry this team offensively, and they're not getting a lot of help anywhere else. And so, you know, I was having a conversation earlier, and like I had, you know, I think if you would have asked me this 5 days ago, I think my answer would be different than what I think my answer is today. And I think there's a world, I didn't think if Giannis was to ask out of Milwaukee, I felt like it would be in the summer. We're going to finish out the season, see what it looks like. But the way Milwaukee's crumbling, like, Chris, I would not be surprised if now it could be on the table here in the near future that Giannis starts to look out there, peek out there, and see if he could be moved by the trade deadline and not just waste a season if the inevitable is that he knows. And I don't think he's there yet, but I think that if he knows.
No, I think he's there. I think he's there.
I don't know if he's at the I want out by the deadline. Now, I think he's like, I'm looking at summertime, I'll probably ask out. But if it keeps going the way it's going and the answer for him becomes more definitive, then you know what? Now, before the trade deadline might be the time to ask out and go where I want to go, because you wait till the summer, you give teams all the time to get their assets together, and Milwaukee doesn't necessarily have to do right by you and send you to exactly where you want to go, as opposed to in season before the trade deadline. We're not going to wait till the summer. The player has a little more leverage. And so I'm looking like if it keeps crumbling the way it's crumbling, and I know that loss today against Boston hurt. I'm watching that game like there's no way in hell Milwaukee should have lost that game, and they did. And so it's like it keeps crumbling and it keeps crumbling. And the worse it looks, like you can't imagine a guy in his prime at 30 years old is looking to even waste a year. So if I know I want to be moved and I know I want out of Milwaukee, why wait until the summer? Why not push this thing to be a massive trade deadline move? It's not like we haven't seen star players get traded at the trade deadline. Kevin Durant,
KD,
2 years ago, was traded in the middle of the night, like silently. And I know that's a guy that's moved around, as opposed to Giannis. This would be groundbreaking because he's drafted by Milwaukee. It'd be the first time leaving his team, but we've seen these groundbreaking trades before. Like, this won't be the first time. So, you know, a week ago I would have said Giannis will wait till the summer. He'll right the ship. But just in 5 days, I'm like, I'm not saying it happens, and I'm not saying he ever asked out, but I think a lot of people around the league seem to think that he could want out, and, you know, some teams have been named, but I think he could push that agenda forward a little bit and make this happen before the trade deadline if things keep going the way they're going. Because, I mean, what are you going to do, fire another coach and try and bring somebody else to right the ship? And then if it doesn't, you got to convince Giannis that this is the guy next year, while also having Dame Lillard, the aging roster. Like, you know, Chris Middleton is nowhere near what he was 3 years ago. Like, when they won the championship, like, these guys aren't producing like they were when they won the championship. You know, their bodies aren't that way. So when I'm looking at Milwaukee, I'm just like, bro, it's kind of all bad because they don't have really tradable assets like that. If you do, you pretty much, if you're trying to make a trade, really what you want is Dame. Nobody really wants Middleton under the contract. So what am I really moving Dame for? And is this going to benefit my team right now while also trying to benefit me, of preventing Giannis from asking out? So I think it's just all bad in Milwaukee, bro. It really is.
It's really bad. And you know, it's crazy. It's like I had a feeling that Giannis would come. Like I felt like, you know, at the last few years, you always keep hearing things in his post-game interviews, and like, all right, you know, I don't know if he's 100% all in. Mm-hmm. And it's like, of course, the Knicks have all the assets finally, and then they go after Karl-Anthony Towns, and they trade a 17 draft pick from Kel Bridges, and I'm like, man, we're not even in it. We can't even do it. You know,
and the Giannis dream is out for like
the Giannis dream is done. Like, I thought that was a reality. I'm like, yo, this could really happen. We have the picks, the money, all
the assets, the young pieces, like a Giannis and Jalen Brunson duo, and see what else you can make shake around it. Like, would have, like, it seemed realistic. Like, it seemed like that was what the Knicks were primed to make a move for. Like, they were setting up for a Giannis, a Joel Embiid, maybe, and I'm not saying, let me be careful. I'm just saying a Luka Doncic, a Nikola Jokic, if he gets tired of Denver, like those caliber of players, like when that unhappy superstar, that unhappy top 5 to 7 player wants out, we are primed to make a trade for him. And even in the offseason, with the Knicks, you heard about like, man, they could throw it away a little bit by like adding Paul George or whatever. And everybody's thinking like, nah, we want the big fish. Like, so don't get a Paul George. And yeah, we could be a little bit better this year. Maybe we make it Eastern Conference Finals, but like we're primed for a Joel Embiid once out of Philly. We're primed for a Giannis once out of Milwaukee. So don't ruin that. And then they basically did by getting the band of the Nova Boys together and also adding Karl Anthony Towns to it, which I don't think is like the worst thing they could have done. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns is a good player.
It didn't cost us that much.
He's kind of been the best player for the Knicks so far this season too. If we keep it in the band, like Karl Anthony Towns, he been hooping. And I'm not saying that to crap on the Knicks. I'm just saying, like, bro, dude been playing good basketball. Like, we be acting like this man a bum. I know he's funny, hilarious, and he do some little goofy stuff, online or whatever, his interviews and all his different voices. But like when it comes to basketball, like Cat can play. Like it's not like the man can play. And I know I don't know, sometimes, guys' personality show too much and we start to not like them. And then anytime they do mess up on the basketball court, we be on them. Or when they do have them bad games, you forget he just gave somebody 30 and 17, 2-3 days ago. But like, nope, there it goes. There goes the joke. There go Big Purr. Like, and then he gets this label of being soft, but like Cat be in some scrappy situations and he ain't always on the bad end. Now, the memes, when he get, in that situation when Rudy Gobert got choked, all that. But like, even when he's in the scrappy end of the situation, he not always on the losing end. He not always on he getting beat up and he's on the floor. So like, it's almost like because of his character, there's been this narrative created about Cat, like he's really not a hooper, but the man is a baller. And he's arguably been the Knicks' best player at the start of this season.
Yeah. I think my issue and what I was worried about with the Knicks is the depth. They only played essentially 6 guys.
Oh, I looked at the bench the other day, bro. Like,
right?
Because I haven't watched y'all.
Look at the bench stats for the game against Indiana. Watch.
I haven't watched y'all every game, obviously. I'm not the Knicks fan that's going to watch every Knicks game. I watch ball, though. But I watched y'all the other day. And I was sitting there thinking, and I think part of it was like, I went into coach mode for a second. Because I'm like, damn, these dudes been on the flow for a little minute. I said, let me check some. I go check the ESPN app. Because I'm like, man, these dudes, it's only been about 5-6 players just running around here for about the whole third quarter and into the fourth. So I go and look at the bench. I said, damn, the Knicks bench is terrible. Like, I was like, yo, I ain't gonna lie.
Deuce McBride.
That starting 5 is tough, though. Like, the starting 5 is tough. Like, pound for pound, when you just talk about starting 5 names and productivity and possibility, they arguably have one of, if not the best starting 5s in the league. But boy, I was like, yo, the Knicks bench is dry. Like, dry. Like, you don't even got an 8-9 man playoff rotation right now with the bench that you trust playing major minutes in important games. There's only about 6-7 guys that you even trust at this point on the Knicks roster to play in a playoff series. So I was like, depth is going to kill them, but like, they don't even have nobody to really make moves. Like, I mean, they got a couple picks still. Like, I know but they're not the same valuable picks of the ones that they've given up. So like, but everybody else, you're not just going to turn around and trade Cat. You're not going to turn around and trade Mikal Bridges. Or you're not going to trade Jalen Brunson. Like, you're not going to turn around and trade OG Anunoby. So anybody within your core isn't somebody that's been there long that has some value anywhere else. Like, and if anything, you talk about possibly like, you know what, we might have to break up the Nova Boys. Your most valuable piece that could be traded is probably Josh Hart. And are you really going to give him up when Jalen Brunson, took a hometown discount on a contract in order to keep the likes of like a Josh
Dante, though,
or Mikal Bridges? But you could tell there was some beef there. Like, there might have been a little bit of, DiVincenzo's like, hey, hold on, I don't want to be a part of this because y'all put me as like I'm fourth fiddle in this. And like, I was hooping in the playoffs when everybody was hurt. Like, so I don't want to be fourth fiddle bringing in Mikal Bridges. Like, yeah, it was cool when we was at Nova and I loved y'all. But first off, this is a business. And second off, like, man, I didn't establish myself as a hooper and a guy that should be in this rotation. Don't come take my spot. We might have been boys, but we don't even know how close they all was.
Well, I know Dante was he was a groomsman, and I think they're cool. But listen, as a fellow Aquarius, and Dante's an Aquarius. I understood how he heard he felt potentially. Like, yo, this is corny. This whole Villanova, all this little
It was corny.
And like, as someone who's an introvert, like, and he's just like, yo, this is cool. We cool, we best friends. Like, this stuff is a little corny, man. I'm not rocking with all this. Like, let's just hoop. And I honestly feel like they lost when trading Dante DiVincenzo. They lost toughness. They don't have that right now. They lost that edge. They don't have that edge right now, and that's something that potentially worries me. Oh, it does worry. It worried me even when they made all the moves, but and now, you trade a lot of picks for Mikal Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of picks. You paid an extra tax because you were trading with Brooklyn, right? And usually you're not trading within, not just a division rival, but like an in-state rival. Like there's not a lot of teams that could do that, but like obviously, us and LA teams, like, you don't really see trades like that because you don't like. That's why I never thought Brooklyn would do that, but after like Brooklyn's like, wait, how many picks you giving us? You know what? Forget all that. New York, y'all can have them for all them. And look at Brooklyn's. They playing solid hoop. They're hooping. They're not too bad. Like they're competitive, and it's like, oh man, I don't know. There's just that pessimistic side of me as a Knicks fan is like, and then if you watch the game, the Pacers, like they can't guard nobody on the perimeter. It's like, we gave 134 points, and we had a few games where we're just giving up wide open shots in the perimeter. And it's just like, whoa, what's going on? So the Knicks struggled. I know it's too early, but it's like, all right, can they figure this out? They don't have like I said, there's no bench. And I told you, right? I told you, yo, Boston's going to make everybody do some irrational moves, right? Boston's going to make people trip. And we're seeing some teams that are like, and we're going to talk about the next team in Philly. Like, now there's this injury related, but like they're off to a bad start, and like there's panic in Philly. That's like with us. There's some panic. Like people are like, yo, like if we can't figure out with this team, like we might be screwed because we just gave up a lot of assets. And Philly too. Now we go into Philly, and obviously we haven't seen Joel yet, and he's supposed to play Tuesday, I believe, right? In the play
against the Knicks, right?
Against the Knicks, against us.
Yeah.
I think that's the first of the play in the mid.
Yeah, the NBA Cup.
NBA Cup thing.
Moretti's NBA Cup now.
Yeah. We're already in NBA Cup mode. So he might play, and Paul George just came back, and but Maxi's out for a month, right?
Something
like they're and what they like let me get their record up. They're 1-7. They're the worst team in the NBA. They're the worst team in the NBA. They have the least amount of wins in the NBA, and this is a team that's supposed to be competing for an NBA championship. So Philly, is this something we should really be worried about? Like, because I know if I'm a fan of Philly or just just as a basketball fan, I'm like, no, this is troubling because we know Joel's only going to play what 50 games max.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he was ready to, like, he's probably going to play 50 games max. So you're already. He's going to miss back-to-backs. Paul George is 34 years old. He has an injury history. He's going to play, 55 to 60 games. Maxi's already out. So he's going to miss games. Like, there's panic. If you got to panic if you're a Philly fan or just an NBA, like, you watching this, you're like, oh, man, Philly, they in trouble, man. Like, and this bad start doesn't help. Like, and the injuries, yeah, it's troubling in Philadelphia. And there's a lot of pressure. For Joel, because we talk about the stat a lot in the offseason. He's the only MVP that hasn't been to a conference finals.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like some of his playoff stuff gets a little bit exaggerated because I feel like he's played really good. Like the Knicks, I felt like he played good. Like he wasn't a reason why they lost, but it's bad, and he's 30, and we might not. There's only so many more years we might see, Joel Embiid at play at elite level. So what do you think about Philly? Do you think this is salvageable, or are they in serious trouble, or because they're in the East, they still got a shot because the East is not as good as we anticipated.
Chris, they was doomed from the beginning. Like, and it's not. But like, so think about like heading into the season, right? Like, okay, they make a move for Paul George. What's the first thing? Like, you know, you and me talked about it. Like, we talk about it in the summer, they get Paul George, and it's like, bro, this ain't 2K. Like, on 2K, you give me Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid, and I'm cooking. Like, give me Philly, and I'm cooking everybody. But this isn't 2K. Injuries play a factor, and you're talking about two of the most injured stars in modern time as far as in Paul George and Joel Embiid. You're talking about a MVP who's never made a conference finals, and then who also coming into the season tells you, like, my days of back-to-backs are over. As in, my type of injuries and the way my body is, I can't play a full season. Like, I can't play 82 games, let alone when you talking about you need me in the playoffs and I can't play game 1 and not play game 2, but play game 3. Like, you can't load manage in the playoffs. And even though you don't play back-to-back, but you might play Monday and then Wednesday. And so if your body's so beat up from back-to-back, I'm calling that out. Like, I'm done with back-to-backs for probably the rest of my career. Like, okay, I'm already concerned about Joel Embiid and his health moving forward. Then you talking about you enter the season with a guy that you traded for that don't start the season because of injury, like in Paul George. Like, Paul George don't start off in a Philly jersey on opening night because of injury. And this is a guy who is injury prone. So, like, now my two stars that are always hurt or injury prone are both hurt, not entering the already entering the season. So we're doomed to start the season. We got injury issues already, and they haven't even played a game yet. And then even when they get to rolling, Paul George can play MVP like basketball for a 30-game stretch, and then he's going to be out the next 10 to 12 games. Joel Embiid, we know, can win MVP of the league, but he's going to get banged up towards the end of the season. Then he's going to be banged up playing on half a leg in the playoffs, like he pretty much does every year. You're talking about Paul George, it's either a knee or a shoulder. You're talking about with Joel Embiid, it's his knees, like he's playing on half a leg. Paul George is playing with an injured shoulder, whether it's his shooting shoulder or his opposite shoulder, which takes away from some of his finesse and some of his toughness that he brings, especially on the defensive side of the ball, if he can't take a lot of contact to that shoulder. So, like, these are guys that you know are hurt. They enter the season injured. And now, like, okay, maybe they do go on a 7-8 game win streak when Joel Embiid comes back. But, like, you know what it looks like, what it can look like when healthy. But the problem is, bro, you have a superstar player who's admitted that my body cannot play 82 games in a season, period. I'm done with back-to-backs probably for the rest of my career. So I cannot in no world play 82 games in a season, let alone you talking about trying to be a team that has championship aspirations. Those teams got to win those teams got to win another, you got to win another 16 games in order to win the championship. So we're talking about at least playing another 16 on top of the fact that you're not sweeping through everything. Philly ain't good enough to sweep everybody in the Eastern Conference. So you're talking about another 30, 40 games to try and win the championship to a player, a superstar, a top 3, 4, 5 player in the league that has already admitted to you, I can't play 82. But you know what? I think me not playing 82 can help in my goal into having to play extra 30 or 40 to win the championship.
It's bad. It's bad. It's all bad. And this is the risk you took. And when you're desperate, and I say this all the time, the worst thing you could do is when you're a desperate GM, when you're a fan, like, is your GM's desperate and you do desperation moves. And this is what I worried about with the New York Knicks, that they would try to do too much, try to go all in, because it's like, all right, we got to try to win now. And it could backfire. And this is what I worry about. And Philly too. Like, you're going all in, but you're going all in on a guy who's injury prone, who's missed a lot of games, now Joel is not going to play back to back. Like, this is, it's definitely scary times if you're a Philly fan, because Joel is too many injuries. And we knew this was going to happen, right? It's inevitable. His body was only going to last so long. Like major injuries, foot, knee, back. I mean, his face got broken. This man has been through a lot of injuries, and I think we're going to see, unfortunately, and it sucks just as a basketball fan. Forget about anything else, but as a basketball fan, it sucks that we might see the decline of him because he's such a great player, but it's tough. It's going to be tough. And now you got Maxey out too. So now he's out. All three of your guys are injury prone. The three most important people on your team are missing games. And they're luckily, I think they're in the East, where the East is right now. Everyone's going through a little bit, minus the Cavs in Boston. Everybody else is just trying to figure things out. Where everyone's trying to figure things out. So nobody's out of it. You could be. I think somebody I forgot what podcast I was listening to, but they were like, the projection for the third seed is Philly, but they're projected to win like 43 games. So it's crazy to think that the 3 seed in the East couldn't be a 43 win team, and then like out west, like
you might be the 9th seed with 43 wins.
You might be the 11th. You might be out of the play-in with 43 wins. You're gonna need 55. It's gonna be like remember like in the early 2000s where like the West, like if you were the 7th seed, you were a 52 win team. Like we used to see like the Spurs go against Dallas, and it was like a 58 win team versus 55 win team, and one's a 3 seed, one's a 6 seed, and it was only 3 games separated. And then the Eastern Conference had like 2 dominant teams, and like the 6 seed was like a 41 win team, or the 8 seed was like a 38 win.
The 4th seed would have been out of the playoffs in the Western Conference. Like you were seeing that a lot in the East, like when the Wizards with Gilbert Arenas and the Bulls with them, like those years. Yeah, you would see that a lot.
You would see nastiness. Like I remember the Knicks one time, they won like 36 games and they were the 8th.
Remember, it got so bad. There was to the point they were talking about, like in the NBA, should it just be the top? Should we take conferences out the picture?
Conferences out, right?
Out of the playoff picture. Like it got so lopsided at one point. They were thinking about like maybe it should just be the 16 best teams, period. Like
it got bad. It got bad in the East.
The
East was nasty for a while. Like
bad,
yeah, the East was like from like 2000. I feel like from 2001 on for like a decade, the East was like this team made the playoffs with 36. It was nasty basketball. But let's talk about the West. Some teams out west. I want to talk about Zion first. Speaking of the Western Conference, Zion's out, has a hamstring injury. I had somebody on who covers a media member who covers the Pelicans and the conversation, and it's just so hard to talk about the conversation about the Pelicans and be like, but what if Zion stays healthy? And what if? And then like I kept saying, I was like, aren't you tired of that? Like, aren't you tired of if Zion's healthy, we can be a top 4 seed? Because we've seen it, right? We've seen the Pelicans be a top 4 seed, like they're that good. Zion gets hurt. That's top 4 seed, top 5. They're play. Zion gets hurt. Zion plays 70. What did he play? 65 games last year, 68 games. Maybe all gets hurt, and now he's hurt again. And I don't know the timetable of the injury. You know how hamstrings are, especially for a hamstring for a guy of his size. It could be a long time before he plays. Do you think the Pelicans? What do you think the Pelicans are thinking right now? What do you think management's thinking? Are they like, damn, is this the final straw? Do we just give up on this? Because this is heartbreaking every year. Like, I feel bad for their fan base too. Like, because they went with the whole stuff with AD, right? First of all, they went with the whole franchise is moving and stuff, and the CP stuff, and then to get AD, like, oh, we got our franchise guy. Remember they won the playoff series. They think they beat the Blazers. They swept them. It's like, oh, AD's on the come up. He asks for a trade. Then they go down. Then they get the number 1 pick. They get Zion, supposed to be the savior, franchise guy, going to make a lot of box office, and he doesn't play games. Do they give up on this? Do they give up on this? Because when I heard the injury, I was like, it's like I mentioned before, Joel, it sucks when players get hurt, and I don't like seeing guys get hurt, whether they're rivals, whatever. I don't care. I want to see the best of the best play. It's just demoralizing if you're Pelican, and then they're struggling right now, and they have the whole thing going on with BI, whether he's going to get him an extension or not, and they went Trey Murphy's hurt. They had their own injuries on top of now dealing with Zion. But what do you think the situation with Zion? What would you do if you're in that situation?
I feel like the Pelicans, first off, are like, damn, even after all this, we should have took Ja Morant. Like, because what has been, like, just think about this, though. Even with Zion, what has been the biggest thing with the Pelicans? We've always said, man, if they had a point guard. Like, man, if they had a point guard. And so,
but you understand why they took Zion, though.
Right.
You understand.
No. Don't get me wrong. Zion, that time, you go back to that day, that time, you don't pass up on Zion. Like, no matter what, hindsight.
They still made the right move, I think. They think you can't pass up on it just because of the money.
Like, Ja Morant turned into basically a superstar, and I know he came with his problems, and he's had some injuries, but at the same time, like, Ja Morant's available again. Like,
he's playing.
Like, and he's playing, and he's played in the playoffs, and you've seen what he looks like in the playoffs. And, like, the what if with Ja Morant was, if he gets his act together, and so he got his act together, and now he's back on the court. Like, where with Zion, I mean, you do think – I almost think you start to, you see where this ship goes, and then you start to see what his, value is around the league. Like, you kind of think about trading them, and it's like, because I don't think how long do we play the if Zion's healthy game where somebody else might be willing to take a chance? Like, there might be another, hey, if Zion's on the market, we'll go get him. And no matter who it is, like, even if you're the Pelicans and, like, punting on Zion means kicking off a rebuild and you start being a major seller, but you got some pieces that could give you a lot of draft. You could get a lot of draft capital and be good on rebuilding a team. I don't even think you'd get shafted in a Zion deal. I think you'd get a lot, a superstar type deal trading Zion. But I think you start to think about breaking this thing down, because where does it go? Like, if we're always constantly depending on if Zion's healthy, like, how many years before Zion's healthy? Even like if you use the Joel Embiid as an example, like, remember the first 5, 6, 7 years of Joel Embiid's career, it was always like, if he's healthy, and then he's healthy and he's playing MVP level basketball. But like, even at his best, he's still dinged up heading into the playoffs. He still could give you 30 and 10, but hasn't been past the second round. So there's still been a ceiling for a guy who's been an injury prone player who's played and won an MVP, but like, still the type of player he is hasn't made it past the second round. Like, so what makes you think that Zion isn't that type of player? And so if I'm New Orleans, why not go ahead, gauge some trade interest, see who would be interested in Zion, and see if it's a move worth making? I'm not saying trade Zion, but if there's an offer out there that you can't turn down for Zion Williamson, because like, at the end of the day, when is he going to be healthy? How long do we play the what if game before I have to make business decisions? And I think you might just need to make a business decision and understand, like, we got some good stuff out of Zion, but maybe he needs to change the scenery as well. And there's a lot that we could do by putting Zion on the market. Like, I do think there's a world where, in a month or two, like, there could be, some teams are going to call. Like, some teams are definitely going to make some calls. And depending on what the Pelicans look like in January and come them Christmas games, that next month becomes crucial as far as, like, what direction are they going to go? And so if Zion's still hurt, or if Zion's playing good ball, but like, it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, you might decide to blow it up. And obviously your biggest trade piece would be Zion Williamson. I think both Zion Williamson and the Pelicans could just use to move off of that story attached to each other right now.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. It sucks that
I think they both could use some detachment. Zion detached from the Pelicans organization, and the Pelicans detached from, the pick, essentially. And Zion's not a bust. I mean, shoot, he's been one of the best, he's a top 15 player when he's healthy, like, easily, numbers wise, production wise. Like, when he's healthy, he's a top 15 player. But he's
one of the best paint scorers of all time already.
Yeah,
like, he's just
when he's healthy is so, like, is such a broad. Well, when he's healthy, he's hardly ever healthy, and he's never healthy when you need him. Like, what playoff series has Zion played in?
He hasn't played a playoff game.
He hasn't played in a playoff series, and the Pelicans, I think, have played in 2 playoff series while Zion Williamson's been on that roster. Yeah, they've played in 2 series while Zion been on that roster, and he hasn't played in a single playoff series yet. He's never healthy when you need him to be. So you got to start thinking about what's best for us as an organization, and maybe it is to move on from Zion Williamson. Like, it's not because I don't think Zion's good enough. I think, if healthy, if he was able to stay healthy, whatever team traded for him will benefit from getting him immensely and could possibly win a championship. I'm not saying he can't help be a part of a team to win a championship. I just think right now, I think the Pelicans and Zion need to detach themselves from each other.
Memphis Grizzlies. Same.
Put John and Zion together.
I just that'd be so much fun to watch. Even though Zion won't play.
That doesn't win a damn thing, though.
But you know what? Out west, you gotta try stuff because it is
not John Zion, though. Like, if I'm trying stuff, look what I gotta go. Nah.
Giannis and Ja? Does that work?
See, like, we more cooking with that. Like, Giannis, yeah. Like, I think we cooking more with that than Zion. Like, if I'm gonna just go all in on the superstar that's available, if I'm Memphis, I try and trade everything I got for Giannis before I trade everything I got for Zion. Yeah, 100%. Like, just because Giannis has done it. Like, he's won the championship. You know what he looks like in the playoffs. He's available in these playoffs. Like, I know he's been hurt a little bit too, but like, what star player isn't hurt at some point? But like, you there's a body of work of Giannis in the playoffs. Like, you know what he looks like in the playoffs. You know what he could do, and you know he could be the best player and lead you to a championship. So you link him with a guy like Ja, like you feel real comfortable with a 1-2 punch. This will be the second best player, you know, Giannis has had. I mean, I guess you could argue the Dame or Ja, but just based on the age of having these players like him and Ja, like, yeah, that can make something shake because Giannis can lead a team being the best player to win a championship. And now I got Ja Morant as my Robin, essentially, and that guy's a superstar player and is arguably one of the best point guards in the NBA when he's on the court. So if I get them two together, I think I can build something around them and make some magic, but not Zion just because of like the injury history. I'm not trying to pair them two together. And it's not like Ja Morant doesn't get hurt either.
Yeah, that he has his own injury history and that he has to worry. But out west, I feel like somebody's got to make some type of move because the West is, like I said, it's a gauntlet. I mean, Phoenix playing really good basketball, you know, but KD's out now. You know,
and KD's out. Everybody stop. Listen, that's another team. I'm like, everybody like, oh, what could Phoenix be? I'm like, listen, I hear you. When healthy, yes, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant when healthy could be one of the most lethal offenses in the NBA. It could score a bunch of points and probably beat a lot of teams in 7-game series. But we're talking about 3 players that are always hurt. If Booker's not hurt, then Beal's hurt. If Beal's not hurt, then KD's hurt. KD just went down with a calf strain again. Like, this is another. So my thing is, like, these guys are always hurt, and since they've been together, if it's not one, it's the other. So you're going to play through points in time in the season where you know Booker's not going to be playing. Obviously, now we know KD's not going to be playing, and Beal hadn't been playing. Like, so you know you're going to go through those points in the season, and so are they going to be able to dial up enough chemistry to make it work in the playoffs? And like, you saw what it looks like. Like, I just don't think that, like, as good as they are, I think regular season and them being able to come out and be fairly healthy and have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant to lead while other teams in the regular season are bringing back different pieces. Like, I think it was the same thing with Phoenix. You brought your core back of Devin Booker, and then you upgraded Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal, and then you upgraded and got you a point guard that can run the offense. So, like, it's going to look good early on because a lot of other teams are trying to figure things out. While you just, as long as we got our guys on the floor, we can outscore most teams. We can outscore 90, 95% of the teams on a nightly basis. So that's why Phoenix has looked so good. But then at the same time, you understand that later we get into the season, Devin Booker drops, and then Kevin Durant drops, and then Bradley Beal drops, and then KD returns for 15 games and looks like the best player in the league, and then he's out for 3 or 4 games, and Devin Booker's having to carry the load, and then he's missing. So, like, I never bought into Phoenix either because I just don't think they're going to be able to stay healthy long enough to make a long enough run to try and win a championship. No matter how good they look early in the season, I'm like, a team like that has the ability to look that good early in the season, especially when their star players are playing more often than not, and they haven't had to figure too much things out chemistry-wise. But when it comes in the long run, Phoenix is another team I just don't trust.
Yeah. I thought they would be vastly improved this year. I'd like the roster construction better than I've done in the past. But now with KD out, you know, we got to see if Beal, you know, can Beal revert back to some of his Washington? I don't think we'll see that Beal ever again, but can we see that on some nights? I'm not sure. I don't know if he's there physically. But you know, and then OKC is you know, they're off to a great start too. Chet got hurt today. He felt kind of hard. So we'll see how that affects them. They already don't have Hardenstein, which for the Knicks, that's still they're feeling the effects of that loss big time. There's no Hardenstein, but who's been the most disappointing team for you in the league right now? I mean, I'm sure we probably talked about one of them, but for you, who's been the most disappointing?
I mean, I think we've pretty much hit on obviously the ones that are the most disappointing. I mean, to see Milwaukee and Philly.
Or how about this? Can those teams? Can they right the ship? Can they bounce back from it, or is it over?
I think it's over because like righting the ship is basically saying, can they bounce back to what we had projected them as coming into the season? And especially when we're talking about Milwaukee and Philly, like we're talking about, we projected them as two of the three biggest threats to Boston. I think coming into the season, it's Milwaukee. If it's not Boston, you got Milwaukee, Philly, and New York. Like I think based on the moves and everything that was made this summer.
And three of those teams are struggling big time.
And two of them are the two worst teams in the league. In Milwaukee and Philly.
No, Philly is the worst team in the NBA.
Philly's the worst team in the league, and then Milwaukee's only one game better. They won 2. They're 2-8. But like when you look at, because these are teams that coming into the season, you would have told them they had championship aspirations. Making it to a conference finals or NBA finals was like the bare minimum for a goal. So like I don't think it's gonna. I mean, because it just looks so bad, and especially like Philly. I guess if you said, when Joel Embiid comes back, like, and then they'll have Joel Embiid and Paul George, and then when Maxey comes back in a month, like, but in that month they held it down, and then things look good, sure. But still, I have the reserve of them being. But maybe they can right the ship to at least have people illusion to the fact that this is a good team, but we know how they'll break down in the playoffs. But Milwaukee, I think it's just bad. Like, I think they're done. I don't think they can win a championship. I don't think they can right this to win a championship. I don't think they have the right head coach in Doc Rivers for me to think that things are going to turn around. He's already been a borderline coach as far as how we really felt about him. And I think for the past 15 years, he's been living off that championship that he won in 2008. As far as why he continues to get jobs and things don't ever go the right way. And so to me, Milwaukee definitely, I think, is done. And I think there'd be more. I think Giannis would be traded during the season before I think Milwaukee righted the ship and looked like a championship contender, unless somehow, some way they were able to shake off some trade that didn't make sense that they fully benefited from. And I don't see that happening. I don't see anybody trying to do business with Milwaukee and make them better right now, because I think them same teams that would do business with Milwaukee and make them better would be like, you know what, I'd rather just not and make Giannis one out. Like, let's not do business with Milwaukee and let's make Giannis ask out and let's go for the Giannis sweepstakes as opposed to helping Giannis in a path of Milwaukee trying to convince him to stay in Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, like I mentioned before, the East is wide open. Like the Milwaukee is, only a game out.
Yeah, they're not down bad.
Playing. So, like, if this is the West, I'd be like, yeah, they're both cooked. But since it's the East, and they're, like I said, 4 and 5 right now is the Knicks. They're the 3 seed. So
Milwaukee shakes into the playoffs as a 6 seed, though. You don't fear Milwaukee the same way you would have feared them in the playoffs as a 1, 2, or 3 seed, because like there's chink in their armor now. So that's why I say, like, I don't think they're going to jump up and be finish 2 seed or 3 seed and finish where they were projected. I don't think they're going to have more than their projected wins coming into the season. So I don't really think they right the ship, for the simple fact, like, yeah, will they make the playoffs? I'm sure they will. Even if they had to get in through the play-in, they'll make the playoffs. 10 games in, 2-8, I'm not saying they're not a playoff team, but like, even if they were a play-in team or a 5 or 6 seed, I don't fear them that way, because there's a chink in their armor, unless it just got so bad and then they got hot and looked great the last 20 games. But I don't think that'll be the route they get in. They'll have some spurts, because at the end of the day, you still can win some games and go on a run. You got Giannis and Dame. Like, they could go off enough and you can have those games. You still got good enough players where you could win 4 or 5 games in a row and things look a lot better. It's not like Nobody outside of them two can play. Bobby Portis can play ball. Pat Connaughton can play ball. You just need your role players to step up. But at the same time, I just don't see them. Like, if that's already an issue, I don't see them stepping up to the point where they just look like a complete championship team. And so righting the ship to me would be that. Can we right this and look back and get back to what we thought we would be heading into the season? I definitely don't think Milwaukee will do that. Maybe health will put Philly there post-trade deadline, like after the All-Star break, and they're coming in healthy, and maybe they're the 5th seed, but all 3 of those guys are on the court, and they're playing ball. So, like, Philly, I think, could more so right the ship than Milwaukee, because to me, Milwaukee is not really about injuries. They're not missing a bunch of players. They're not
The play
they're not trotting through no Dame, no Giannis, and see what we could do. Like, this is Dame and Giannis are playing in these games, and they're losing. They're giving up leads. Dame and Giannis are producing in these games. They are playing at high levels offensively and losing these games. So now you're looking at like, damn, what else am I supposed to do if I score 40 and I'm losing? Like, I know you could be like, hey, it's easy to tell Giannis, well, go score 45, go score 50. But like, if I'm supposed to be this defensive, the anchor of the defense, score 40, get rebounds, get assists, and make plays, like, damn, and I'm still not winning at some point, somebody got to step up. If I'm scoring 40 and losing, somebody got to step up at some point. And if they ain't giving me another 30, then I'm looking at the 10 other guys that were active for that night that got to step up. We putting up 60, 70 combined as a duo. I'm looking at the other 12 guys that were active on that night to say, like, where are y'all helping us out at? We can't average 60, 70 points a night as a duo and be losing and think that we're going to win a championship. And you could tell, like you said, after that Knicks game, you could tell Giannis is continuously getting more and more frustrated. So I wouldn't be surprised if the move for Giannis was to happen pre-trade deadline as opposed to in the summer that would have been on my head about a week ago.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, this deadline, and it's going to be here sooner than we think, and to see where they're at. I don't think you'll get. Now that I think about it, I don't think he'll get traded because simply, like I mentioned, the East is down right now. So there, like I said, if Middleton somehow gets healthy, by the end of the season, and maybe they make a little bit of a run, like they still have Giannis and Dame. And in the playoffs, if you have those two together, they didn't have those two together in the playoffs last year.
I think it's easier to strip it down though, because I don't think Dame wants to be in Milwaukee. I don't think.
That's 100% true. He does not want to be there.
And that's what I'm saying. At that point, you could just strip it down.
Yeah, and so they got a lot of. I'm sure there's a lot of people in Milwaukee right now that are like, damn, this ain't good. Like we down bad, and it could be the end of an era, And so we'll see what happens on there. But Mo, I appreciate you coming on the pod. Always good to talk ball with you. The NBA is we got a lot of things going on, a lot of crazy. We didn't even get into your Miami Heat, and I'm sure we'll talk about that next time. But always good talking ball with you. Before we sign off, tell the people where they can find you and any projects you got going on.
Yeah, you can follow me as always at Mo_Cheese15 on Twitter, at Up in Flames Pod on Instagram. I'm still trying to work through the schedule. It's been tough with coaching and trying to record and everything.
Coach Mo.
Yeah, I'm setting things up to try and be able to kind of basically record during the day on my break at work and have things set up like that so I can still produce content. So no major projects yet until I get all that figured out. But just whenever I can make appearances on the weekend and record my shows on the weekend, I'll continue to do so. But I appreciate you for having me on, Chris.
Always a pleasure having you on. Appreciate everyone who tuned in, and we'll see what's going on in the association. A lot of things going on. Team struggling, players out, a lot of injuries. East is down, the West is on fire. A lot of good things going on. But make sure to check out Get a Bucket podcast. We are dropping the Big East preview and talking about the weekend games tomorrow. So on that note, be well, be safe, take care. Peace out, guys.